Shalom Aleichem, Assalamu Alaikum. Welcome to Ezra Chapter 8, in which there are 36 verses. Beginning in verse 1, it reads here, leaders that went up versus genealogy. It also says the king of Babylon, which doesn't make sense in the Septuagint, but the Masoretic actually makes more sense. Just to give credit where credit is due, it says here, went up with me from Babylon. So talking about the people that went up from Babylon, not associating Artaxerxes being the king of Babylon. But technically, the empire of Persia did conquer Babylon, so if you want to use that reasoning, that logic, that could work. Verse 3, a company of 150 verses were reckoned by genealogy. Again, continuing that difference. In verse 5, we have an omission of the name Zathoes, and is actually replaced by the name Shechaniah. We see the same thing happening in verse 10, another omission of the name that is Bani, replaced here by Shelomit. Verse 15, reviewed the people versus viewed the people. So he didn't just look at them, he reviewed them in terms of assessing them, reevaluating them, you could say. And I forwarded them to the rulers with the money of the place. So he sent them with the money of the place versus I sent them with commandment unto Edo the chief. That person has been added at the palace, or I should say the place, Kasifia. What is Kasifia? That word means silvery, or is a place in Babylonia on the road between Babylon and Jerusalem, the site of which is uncertain, the exact location. It also says here in the same verse, with the money of the place. Second time it says that versus at the place Kasifia. So it replaces Kasifia with money. And then it says here, to their brethren, the Athanim, with the money of the place, versus unto Edo, to his brethren, the Nethinims, at the place Kasifia. So that happens twice. The replacement of money of the place and Kasifia. We have a significant difference. They requested they should bring us singers for the house of our Elohim. And I have a little skit here. Hey, where are those singers we asked for? Oh, no, we brought ministers. What are we going to do with ministers? We need singers, and vice versa. Hey, where are those ministers we asked for? Oh, we have singers. What do we need singers for? So either or, it's a significant difference enough to cause some trouble if you don't ask correctly for the right positions. Are you asking for singers or ministers? Well, the Septuagint is saying it's singers. The Masoretic is saying, no, we need ministers. So two very different functions. But minister means to serve, but not specifically singing. Could mean many things in general. Verse 18, and at the commencement versus Sherebiah, also known in the Septuagint as Sarabias or Sarabia. He is mentioned in the book of Nehemiah, in those various chapters that you can refer to in my notes. Verse 20, gathered by names versus expressed by name. So they were indeed gathered. And then referring to the fast that Ezra had proclaimed, very incredible example of faith. He says that they humbled themselves versus afflicted themselves, and that seems to be a common difference and even a common thread when we look at repentance, humbling, and afflicting. And we've had a previous presentation on this in the last book, Second Chronicles, about humbling, afflicting, and submitting, surrendering, and so on, and being ashamed. And it says straight way versus right way. Verse 25, talking about the vessels of the first fruits. So these are vessels used for the first fruits, the offering, versus vessels, even the offering. So it seems that they are one and the same or two different items, but not connecting them to say that the vessels are used for the offering. It doesn't give that connection in the Masoretic text. Verse 26 now. Different quantities provided. We have 100 vessels of silver versus 100 talents worth of silver vessels, which would then add onto the 650 previously mentioned talents, so that for a total of 750, unless that 100 talents is part of the 650. Verse 27, superior vessels of fine shining brass, precious as gold. That's an interesting observation, that this brass, although worth less than gold, is as precious as gold. It is acknowledged to be, at least maybe aesthetically, as pleasing as gold, because copper, shining brass, is a remarkable sight to behold. Very pleasant, very shiny. Uh, what does it say in the Masoretic? It says two, just as the word two vessels, not superior. Verse 31, talking about the dangers on the path, on the way to go to Jerusalem. There were adversaries, enemies, but the Masoretic describes them as enemies and of such as lay in wait by the way. So those who are looking to pounce upon them. Verse 34 to 35. So there's a few words that were connected to different sections. So we have the three words at that time. So at that time in the Septuagint is connected with the children of the banishment, were banished, that came from the captivity. They offered the whole burnt offerings. In the Masoretic, it connects at that time with the weight of the gold. All the weight was written down of the silver and gold was written down at that time. And then it goes on to form a new sentence, the children of those that had been carried away, which will come out of the captivity. So the chronology is not as specific as it is in the Septuagint in regards to when the offering was done, but it is provided in the Septuagint. Okay, verse 36, our final verse. Again, the continuous difference, but I don't want to get too technical, but I have to. This is part of this channel to be very detail oriented. They gave the king's mandate to the king's lieutenants and the governors. Where were they? Beyond the river. And the Masoretic, where were they? On this side of the river, not beyond the river. So we have a discrepancy between the two records. The facts do not line up. The locations don't line up. The geography doesn't match. And then lastly, it describes how they treated the people of Elohim, the people of Israel. They honored the people and the house of Elohim versus they furthered the people, which when you look into this word in the Hebrew, nasa, can mean to carry, to take, to bear up, lift up, or exalt. And exalt seems closest to the Septuagint's rendering. So that's all for this chapter. Thank you very much for your time. Until next time, we'll look at Ezra chapter 9. And until then, I bid you all shalom aleichem, assalamu alaikum, Ereini mazisu, pax vobiscum, peace be unto you, and maranatha.